What is the true source of beauty? Is it skill? Is it vision? Or is it something you must mine from a place where no light has ever touched? This is the story of a competition, a hidden genius, and the terrible, whispered truth that the most exquisite art is not created, it is excavated. And some excavations wake things that were meant to sleep in the dark, forever. In the river terrace village of Umkhuhlane, the festival of the vessel was everything. It was commerce, it was pride, it was legacy. The great potter Zebulon had won for 5 years running. His work was strong, symmetrical, perfect. But this year, a whisper began. A reclusive young woman, Lulama, the orphan daughter of a failed potter, had been seen fetching clay not from the communal bank, but from the shadow pit, a place where the river undercut the red earth, exposing a seam of clay so black it was almost blue. It was forbidden. Old tales said it was the sleeping place of the earth's regrets. Lulama was desperate. Her family's name was Mud. She had the touch, the feel, but her creations were always just good. Never transcendent. The shadow pit called to her loneliness. The clay there was cold, dense, and heavy. It felt alive. Working in secret, she formed a simple water jar. But as her hands moved, the clay seemed to guide her. It remembered shapes. When she fired it, the black clay didn't turn red. It turned a deep, mesmerizing midnight blue, shot through with veins of silver that seemed to move in the light. The jar was not just beautiful. It was alive with a quiet, sorrowful majesty. It hummed, a note so low it was felt in the bones, not heard. She entered it into the competition under a false name, the dreamer's hand. The day of judgment arrived. Zebulon's pot was magnificent. But when the elders saw Lulama's jar, they fell silent. A profound hush fell over the crowd. It was not a pot. It was a presence. It won, unanimously. When the false name was stripped away and Lulama, trembling, came forward, the village erupted, not in cheers, but in a storm of gossip and awe. Zebulon's smile was carved from ice. Lulama was catapulted from obscurity to fame. Orders poured in. Only from the shadow clay, they demanded. She became wealthy. But with each piece she made, a change occurred. The clay no longer just guided her hands, it began to speak to her. Whispers in the spin of the wheel. It asked for things. A vessel for forgotten songs. She made a flute, and its notes made people weep for losses they couldn't name. It asked for a bowl for silent screams. The bowl, when placed in a room, would amplify hidden tensions until fights erupted. Her art was becoming a conduit for the buried emotions, the regrets, locked in the clay. Her grandmother, Gogo Namalanga, the last who remembered the full old stories, came to her workshop. She touched a newly fired, shimmering black vase and snatched her hand back as if burned. Child, you are not shaping clay. You are waking memories. This is not earth. It is the petrified grief of the land itself. The shadow pit is where the earth bury its sorrows. Every heartbreak, every betrayal, every unfulfilled dream that happened on this soil, it sinks down and settles there. You are giving it form again. And what has form, wants voice. Lulama, intoxicated by success and the clay's whispers, refused to listen. I am an artist, Gogo. I give beauty to pain. Zebulon, the dethroned master, was not so dismissive. Consumed by envy, he went to the shadow pit himself at midnight, determined to steal the secret. He took a great lump of the black clay. But he had no respect, only greed. He hacked at it. The next morning, he was found at his wheel. He had sculpted a horrific, twisted figure, a mockery of a pot, his hands fused to the clay. He was dead, his face locked in a silent scream. The grotesque pot hummed with a violent, discordant note. The clay had punished his arrogance. The village was terrified. They saw Lulama's art not as a gift, but as a dangerous witchcraft. Yet, they still craved the beauty. The whispers in the clay grew louder, more specific for Lulama. "Make us a home," they sighed. "A great vessel. A unity of regrets. Make us whole again." The plea became an obsession. The voices in the clay were a chorus of lonely, trapped sorrows. They called to the sorrow in her own heart, her dead parents, her loneliness. They promised that in making their great vessel, she would not just give them a home, she would find her own. A family of shared regrets. She began her masterpiece. A colossal, black and silver funerary urn, large enough to hold a man. She worked day and night, the clay cold under her fingers, the whispers now a constant soundtrack in her mind. She stopped eating. She stopped sleeping. Her eyes took on the same dark, silver-veined sheen as her creations. As the urn took shape, strange events plagued the village. A man who bought a vase for secrets began sleepwalking, shouting confessions of an old affair. A woman with a bowl for screams woke to find all her glassware shattered. The regrets, given form, were leaking back into the world, seeking their origins. Gogo Namalanga, with the help of a young, rational-minded teacher named Thando, tried an intervention. They confronted Lulama in her workshop. The nearly complete urn dominated the room, humming with a power that made the air vibrate. "Lulama, stop!" Thando pleaded. "Look at what it's doing to you. To everyone." Lulama, her hands covered in the living clay, turned. "They are lonely, Thando. They just want to be beautiful. To be seen. Like I was. You are not seeing them." Gogo Namalanga cried. "You are reincarnating them. That urn is not a vessel for ashes. It is a womb. You are gathering scattered regrets to give birth to something that should never be born. The Umkhuhlane wamaPhupho, the fever of regrets. It will not be a family. It will be a cancer made of sorrow, and it will consume this village to feed its own longing." In that moment, the final whisper came from the urn itself, clear and cold. "We are ready. Bring us the fire of life. Finish us." To fire a piece of pottery is to give it its final, permanent life. Lulama, her will now a thin veneer over the clay's compulsion, knew what she had to do. The urn required a kiln of communion, a firing fueled not by wood, but by a voluntary, living sacrifice of a profound, personal regret. The clay demanded a soul to anchor its new, collective consciousness. It demanded the potter. Lulama announced she would fire the great urn in a special ritual at the next new moon, at the edge of the shadow pit. The village, equal parts terrified and mesmerized, gathered. It felt less like a firing and more like an execution. Thando and Gogo Namalanga made a desperate plan. They could not destroy the urn, it was too powerful, too connected to Lulama. But they could try to redirect the ritual. The old woman explained, the clay feeds on specific regret. It wants Lulama's core sorrow. Her orphanhood, her loneliness. But if we can flood the ritual with a different, more powerful, more universal regret at the moment of firing, we might confuse it. Break its specific hunger. What regret is more powerful than a lifetime of loneliness? Thando asked. Gogo's eyes were grim. The regret of an entire community. Their collective shame for how they treated her. For their greed for her art while fearing her. For letting Zebulon's envy fester. We must make them feel it, truly feel it, and offer that. At the new moon, the urn stood by the gaping maw of the shadow pit. Lulama, spectral in a white robe, stood before it, a living torch in her hand. The black clay of the urn drank in the moonlight. She began the chant the whispers had taught her. The urn's hum rose to a deafening drone. The ground trembled. From the shadow pit, tendrils of misty, silver darkness began to rise, flowing toward the urn, seeking their completed form. As Lulama raised the torch to throw herself into the specially built kiln pit beneath the urn, Gogo Namalanga stepped forward. She did not address Lulama. She turned and spoke to the gathered, fearful villagers. You wanted her beauty but not her spirit. You took her art but called her a witch. Your whispers of fear were louder than the clay's. This is your regret taking shape. Look at it. This is yours. Her words, amplified by the urn's power, acted like a spell. A wave of palpable guilt, shame, and sorrow washed over the crowd. Thando, weeping, shouted, "We are sorry, Lulama. We failed you." Others took up the cry, a genuine, wrenching confession of collective failure. This massive, unexpected wave of communal regret hit the ritual. The silvered mist from the pit hesitated. The urn's hum stuttered. It was being offered a banquet of regret, but not the specific one it was designed for, Lulama's personal anguish. The conflict of hungries created a schism in the magic. Lulama, her mind a battleground, froze. The torch trembled in her hand. The voice of the clay inside her screamed in fury. Their regret is weak. Watered down. Ours is pure. Ancient. Come to us. But the voice of her grandmother, cutting through the noise, found the last piece of the real Lulama. You are not your regret, child. You are the vessel that holds it. And a vessel can choose what to hold. Hold our love instead. Even if it is late. Even if it is flawed. Hold that. In that instant of clarity, Lulama made a choice. She did not throw the torch into the kiln pit to consume herself. Instead, with a cry that was both her own and the sound of breaking chains, she hurled the torch directly at the great urn itself. The living flame struck the black and silver clay. There was no explosion. There was an uncreation. A silent, voracious inversion. The urn did not shatter. It imploded. The beautiful, terrible form collapsed in on itself, the silver veins acting as a net, pulling all the swirling mist of regret, all the whispering consciousness of the clay, back into a single, dense point. A shockwave of absolute, empty silence blasted outwards. Then, with a final, soft pop, all that remained was a lump of inert, gray, ordinary clay on the ground, and a light coating of fine, silver dust over everything and everyone. The connection was broken. The whispers stopped. Lulama fell to her knees, sobbing. Not the artist's sobs, but the raw, human sobs of a woman finally free of a haunting. The village of Umkhuhlane was changed. The shadow pit was just a pit. The magic clay was gone, returned to mere earth. Lulama never made pottery again. Her hands, she said, could no longer feel the clay. They could only feel life. Zebulon's grotesque pot crumbled to dust. The other pieces she had sold lost their haunting luster and became simple, if well-made, objects. But the event left scars. The silver dust that fell that night never fully washed away from the stones around the pit. On certain moonless nights, if you press your ear to those stones, you can hear not a whisper, but a sigh. A single, exhausted, collective sigh. Lulama and Thando left the village of potters. They moved to the city, where she became a teacher for orphan children, showing them how to shape not clay, but their own futures. The festival of the vessel continues. But now, the first rule, inscribed on the judging tablet, reads: Beauty must come from the artist's spirit, not the spirit in the earth. Beware the clay that dreams. Lulama sought to create beauty from a place of pain. And she succeeded. But she learned that some pains are not meant to be sculpted. They are meant to be buried. Her art was a seance, and she nearly became the ghost. The village learned that envy and fear can be just as potent as magical clay. They almost sacrificed a girl to their own ambivalence. So, what do you think? Was Lulama a victim of a supernatural material, or was her own desperate need for recognition the real door that let the darkness in? Can true art ever be separated from the artist's pain? Let me know in the comments below. This is the conclusion of this tale. If you are fascinated by stories where creation and curse are two sides of the same spinning wheel, then you must see the story of the valley that echoed with dreams. The link is on the screen now. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell for more tales from the Safari of Tales. Until next time, remember, the most beautiful forms often hold the darkest shadows.